Hey guys, welcome back to DRC Garage. In some previous videos past, I had mentioned that I was going to be making a vlog video with my daughter. That still will happen. It's going to be about her life dealing with cystic fibrosis. But I wanted to go ahead and get my video done on my behalf of what it's like to be a parent. So my daughter was born in 1996. I had just got done playing, getting out of professional baseball in 1995. So she was born in May of 96, and then she was around 14 months old. She went to a private daycare, and the woman that was watching her had mentioned to my previous wife, her mother, that her stools were really loose. We noticed it, but we didn't, we were new parents and really didn't think. But so anyways, my ex-wife and my mom took my daughter up to All Children's in St. Petersburg, Florida. She had been in for Paige was on her about her third or fourth sinus surgery. She had some really bad congestion in one of her cavities in her nose. But she did have remember she had the surgery on a Thursday, and I did go up to the surgery with my mother went, and Paige's mom. But the doctor, the guy that did the surgery, Dr. Andrews, he came out after the surgery, like every doctor does come out for after every surgery, and he said that he felt that something was wrong, that her left cavity was so congested it was like taffy, and he had mentioned that he wanted to test Paige for cystic fibrosis. My mom had been a kind of like a volunteer at the local hospital back in high school, and she knew what cystic fibrosis was. I had no idea what it was. So Dr. Andrews, as soon as he said that he wanted to check her with cystic fibrosis, my mom says, "Oh no," like, "Oh shit." And like I said, I didn't know anything about it. But long story short, Paige's they do a sweat test where they heat your arm, and they can actually test through CF through the sweat in her system. And if you ever kiss a CF person, they're very salty. But the Dr. Ewig, who was Paige's CF pediatrician, he actually called my cell phone and busted the devastating news to me that my daughter was cystic fibrosis positive. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic lung disease. You carry a gene. Everybody carries genes, but it's a 1 in 4 chance. Both parents have to carry the same gene in order for a child to be born with cystic fibrosis. It was honestly the most devastating news that I received. I really honestly can't even explain the feeling that I had of my very first born child diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. But like I said, that was on a Friday that we had found out for sure from Dr. Ewig. And he asked me, he told me that he was going to wait until Monday, but he wanted to call on Friday because he wanted to see Paige first thing in the morning on Monday morning. I cannot remember dates or anything, or what year. It was obviously 1997, but I can't remember what month or whatever. But I tried to work that weekend. I remember on Friday when I talked to Dr. Ewig, I told him that I would get on the computer and try to learn as much as I can about the disease. And he recommended that I could, but don't, a lot of the information is outdated. Like back then, I know on the computer the average age life expectancy was like 21, when in fact it was really like 32. So that was one of the things. But after studying and trying to learn about CF, I literally tried to work that weekend, and I was up and down, up and down, up and down. I was crying. I wasn't laughing, but I was, I could work for a little bit, and then I'm kind of a softie, so I bawled my eyes out, because you don't know what's going to happen with your child. But it's just crazy how everything works. But I remember on Sunday, my Paige's grandmother sent me a picture of a little boy in the newspaper. Our local newspaper. It was for a golf tournament for cystic fibrosis. His name was Taylor Stroop. So what I did, that was back when phone books, we still had phone books. So I looked up in the phone book, and there was only like 3 sets of Stroops in town. I believe it was the second or third when I called, and I told him the person who I was and what I was calling for. And I think it was actually the third person that I called. It was actually the father. His name was Ed Stroop. I actually met Ed Stroop that evening at a local Applebee's, and he literally, I think Taylor maybe like about a year older than Paige, so he had been dealing it for a little bit, and he literally spent probably 2.5, 3 hours with me explaining to me what cystic fibrosis was. I did feel a little bit better, but it's still your own child. I've always been an emotional type guy. I still am. But when you're faced with life, everybody has cards dealt, but that was my card dealt, and it was something that I had to live with. I had to grow up. Not that I wasn't grown up, but it was just another step in life that kind of set you back. Paige was, she was a good kid. Paige has always been a great child, very easy. And I remember me and Paige's mom went to a cystic fibrosis convention the following year, and there was a therapy machine that the machine, I'll show you all what it is, and the ones that I do donate, but it was around like $22,000, and I told her mother that we're gonna get one of those. It's CF. Before, you would have to beat on their chest and beat on their back to break the mucus up. Basically what CF does is it builds up mucus in your lungs, and it basically will suffocate you. Imagine a coffee straw, putting that in your mouth and breathing 24/7. That's what it's like for a cystic fibrosis, someone who has CF, to what it's like to live with. There's been many times where I wish it was me and not her, but it's just, it changes your life forever, and for the good and for the bad. But Paige, when Paige was younger, she was in and out of the hospital a few times, and then the older you get, the more it progresses. And she was okay. I mean, like I said, she was in and out of the hospital. It tore me down mentally. I used to fight depression a lot because of that. Not so much anger, or just sadness, and I'm not trying to get too sappy with you, but this video will get better as time goes. So it's just, it's too hard to explain how you feel at that young of an age. I was like 26 years old. I'll be 51 next week, so we've been dealing with this for a long time. And it's like, what can you do to help, So we used to do the beach walks and the golf tournaments and bowling events and stuff. And that stuff was fun, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And this video really is not about Drag Race for a Cure. I mean, it ties in with it, but that's the reason I started Drag Race for a Cure, because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I love. My passion for cars and drag racing is probably like no other. But I wanted to, I thought about it for about 7, 8, 10 years if I could ever do something like that and be successful at it. And I ran it across to a friend. And it's like with CF being the older they get, the worse it gets. It's like you sometimes in your mind you think, how much time do they have? It's not like, getting killed in a car wreck or something like that, but it plays havoc on your mind and makes you really think about what's important in life. But anyway, so I just wanted to get, I kind of started the drag race for a cure because of the illness, because it affected my daughter. But there was another girl down in, she lived in Fort Myers. Her name was Kayla James, and she was a local junior drag racer in Immokalee. And I remember I was at Bradenton Motorsports Park, and I was in my Duster, and I was in the staging lanes, and this one woman named Kathy Marshall, who lived down there, who used to live up where I was from, she was telling me about Kayla James having CF and stuff. And she's like, why don't you look the parents up, or look her up on Facebook? And I was just new to Facebook at the time. And it was Facebook. It wasn't MySpace. It was Facebook. But I didn't really those people have their own life. I have my own life. If I saw her at the track, I would definitely would have went up and said, introduce myself and stuff like that. But I was literally in almost the same spot about 8 months later in my Duster in the staging lanes at Bradenton. And Kathy came up to me and told me that Kayla James was not doing good. So after I got home from the race, I tried to reach out to the parents. I didn't know the seriousness of it. But finally, after about 4 or 5 days, like I said, I tried. I didn't want to bother them too much, but it was about 4 or 5 days after I had tried to call a couple times, and I left some messages on Facebook. But Kayla James passed away at age, I believe she was 16 or 17, and she looked a lot like my daughter, and Kayla could have been sisters, blonde hair, blue eyes. Kayla, like I said, Kayla was about a year old. It was at that time that I felt that I had to do something to try to conquer this disease or slow it down. There's many events. This is not just DRC saved cystic fibrosis, but we had a small part in a huge problem. So told you all about the race and how it was just going to be a one-time event. And it's that time in your life where you almost have to do something, like you feel obligated, and that's how I started. And it's honestly, it's been a great road. It's made me the person I am and who I am. Both my parents raised me to be a good person, but when you face life challenges, that makes you really open your eyes. And there was times where, like I said, the depression was so bad that I sometimes I didn't even want to get out of bed. But down the road, it's like, at the time, it was like a light switch clicked on and off of me. So we started doing Drag Race for a Cure, and so that's how the Drag Race for a Cure started. A friend of mine, I called a friend of mine that I met on Facebook, named Larry Hutchinson. He's a drag racer from Orlando, and I told him about things and what was going on and what I was wanting to do. And he's like, I told him I just wanted to get it off my chest. But long story short, we're going into our 8th year. We've raised over $120,000 for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and other charities. We've done Make-A-Wish Foundation, St. Jude's Hospital, Angelman Syndrome, Right to Breathe, but 50% of all the proceeds go to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. We've done local car shows. I've done about 4 or 5 car shows for local sick children. in my community, in my area. A couple cystic fibrosis people and cerebral palsy. But the progression of cystic fibrosis has really, the funding has gotten a lot more. We don't get, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation does not get any government assistance as far as funding. I believe last year they were like, back when we first started with Paige having CF, I think they were only raising like $20 million a year or something like that. It sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't. But I think they're up over like 200 million now in funding, and it's not just DRC, it's other events, you know, still the bowling events and stuff like that, and we still do not get any government funding. But back in, I want to say it was like 2017, there was a new medicine that was supposed to be like a breakthrough medicine. It might have been 2016. I know we started in 2015, but I believe it was either 2016, 2017. There was a breakthrough medicine called Oricambi. It was supposed to be the next best thing in the cystic fibrosis community. Immediately, Paige started that, and there's a lot of side effects. There was a lot of side effects to that, and she did okay on it. She, you know, it was supposed to help you gain weight and help your PFT test. A PFT test is what it is they breathe in a tube as long as they can and as hard as they can, and it records your airways. So the higher a number, the better. Paige currently is around, she's around like a 70, 75. Every CF patient is different. I mean, there's people that blow in 100, but when you get down to like the low 30s, 31, 32, they start talking about lung transplants. We had a good friend of Paige, had a good friend, his name was Billy Augustin. He had a lung transplant, and the average life expectancy for someone after a lung transplant is 5 years. And I think Billy made it like 3 years, and his lungs went into rejection. I was up with his mother and his father for like 2 weeks up at the hospital up at Tampa General when he got his lung transplant. And then 3 years later, he sent me a message on Facebook and said he wasn't feeling well. He's going back up to the hospital. And I would say within a month, he had passed away. And I received I received a message from my daughter, and I remember her telling me that Billy's mom wants us to come up and say goodbye. And that was honestly the hardest thing in my life that I've ever had to do, was saying goodbye to someone. You know, he had the tube in his throat, and everything was just all over the place, and he could open his eyes, but he couldn't talk. He couldn't, you know, hardly move. He could hear you, but I told him I loved him. When I got to the hospital, there was way too many people in the room. I wanted to spend a few moments with Billy alone with his mom. And the head nurse at the CF Center in Tampa speaks with my daughter quite often, and her name is Sue. But I sat out and I waited for everyone to say their goodbyes, and I remember this was only about 3 years ago, and Dr. Patel, he's the head doctor at the CF Center now in Tampa. He has a lot of respect for me, and I have a lot of respect for him. They all know what I do. But I spent some time with him and Billy's mom, and we all three cried. And I remember Dr. Patel saying to Billy that you gave a good fight. And to this day, I still get kind of emotional about that, like the last words to someone. But I love Billy like he was my own son. He was a great kid. He you know, he was pretty sick growing up, and one of his lungs, I believe it was his right lung, was probably worse than his left. and he just progressed, and it just got worse and worse. And CF patients cannot hang out with each other because they give off different infections and bacteria and stuff like that. But Paige and him would speak for very frequent over the phone and through like FaceTime and stuff like that. And seeing my daughter say goodbye to Billy was extremely hard on me, because she knows one day that could be her. But in 2019, I told you about Oricombi. There was another drug called Syndico that came out, and that did about the same as Oricombi. It was okay. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. But in 2019, the FDA approved a drug called Trikafta, and that, let me tell you something, that drug has been a fucking game changer for cystic fibrosis. Like, these people are almost living a normal life. Paige is doing really, really good. Paige, you know, she has more of my personality, wanting to help people. She graduated high school. She was always working, dog sitting, and going to school. She had, you know, having CF is a job itself. It's like literally like so much work a day just to get through that day. And like I said, the next video that I do, the vlog that I do with Paige, I'll show you the amount of pills that they take. I mean, it's insane. They do the chest therapy machine. We actually had ours, the community, Sarasota County, donate, they put an article in the paper, and the machine that I was telling you about from the convention that we went to, our insurance wouldn't pay for it, but our community, they put an article in the paper, and I didn't want them to do that. I would have taken equity out of my house and bought it. But the community rallied around, and within a week, we had a machine order that was 20,000, and we had about 30,000 more raised. And we actually had them have to have the newspaper put an article to say that we've received what we wanted, because the community just really rallied around Paige. And a lot of that was because of me, because I was born and raised there, and I was kind of I won't say a celebrity, but I had I was a former professional baseball player, and a lot of people knew me by my name and what I've done, who I played. A lot of people followed my career. But anyways, the CF has really, living with CF now is almost as normal as it can be. Paige actually, she was a nurse, and she went back to school she wanted to do radiology. So she just graduated maybe like 6 months ago, and she's a radiologist at Sarasota Memorial Hospital down in Venice, Florida, or actually it's in Nokomis. But Paige is doing really fantastic, and it's all, honestly, it's all because of Trikafta. And you'll hear it from her how Trikafta has changed many lives. The downfall to it is the people that have lung transplants cannot. It does nothing for them. It's only the people with her that have their original lungs. I know Paige got down to, like, on her PFT test, at one time she was down in like the low 50s, the high 40s, and that was before Trikafta, and now she's up to 75. I've seen other people that I know go from 60 to 95. I've seen it only go up from 60 to 65. It's all about how CF has affected you so far, you know. Cystic fibrosis affects mostly the lungs. It affects the pancreas. They have to take enzymes every single time they eat. They have to take like 5 to 6 pills just to eat. And what that does is it absorbs the fat that's in the food, so that it retains to stay in them. It helps absorb it. It's like, basically, I would call it like eating a loaf of bread. It absorbs things. Like I said, it's the pancreas, the sinuses, and the lungs. But I'm extremely proud of what Paige has become. She was always one every time growing up. She had her days, don't get me wrong, but she always had a smile on her face no matter how she felt. But anyways, that's all I really wanted to talk about. But it's I've helped many parents dealing with their child being diagnosed, just like Ed Stroop did me. It's almost like you have to coach the parents. I constantly get calls, I get tagged in things, and I'm more than willing to go outside of my space to help someone else, a parent, a child with it, an adult with CF. CF has really been a big part of my life, and it won't go away. It's never going to go away. You know, it's something that I have to deal with, and I have to accept it. You know, you can't be depressed about it. You have to do something. You have to do something to fight along with them. You know, so that's where we're at. And like I said, I'll get with Paige. Paige is gonna sit down and explain everything that on what it's like for her. You know, it's different. It's different for someone living with it and and someone that's living with someone with it. You know, it's very mental. And I have another vlog. I'll probably do that. Paige, I'm going to breakfast with Paige on Sunday. I'll see if we can do it Sunday. She did get COVID, and she's for like 2 years she didn't get COVID while she was in the hospital being a nurse, and then she's a radiologist tech, and you know, x-ray tech, and she gets COVID. So, but it didn't really affect her like I thought it would. And I'm telling you, most of it is because of Trikafta. If she wasn't on Trikafta and she didn't have her vaccines, vaccines are very important for people that, you know, that suffer any type of illness. So I don't want any political stuff on here, but there's reasons that people do get their vaccines, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I got mine just to be safe around her. As much as I didn't want to, I felt I needed to. But Paige is, like I said, she's doing absolutely outstanding, and I'm extremely proud of her. She has worked her ass off to get where she's at in life right now, health-wise. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about that and go from there. But if you guys know anyone that has cystic fibrosis, or you know, their child does, or the parent, and that they need to talk, you guys can I'm going to put my phone number. It's 941-822-3396. my name is David W. Pike Jr. I'm located in Parrish, Florida, about 30 minutes south of Tampa, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, somewhere around there. I'm right by Bradenton Motorsports Park. There's been so many stories of racers that have reached out to me, and I've helped co-workers of a friend of mine. You know, I'm willing to help. So if you guys know anyone, you can send me a friend request on Facebook to David W. Pike Jr., or you can follow Drag Race for a Cure on Facebook. Just type in Drag Race for a Cure. We have an event page, and we actually have a page that we periodically put stuff up. But anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I really do. This YouTube channel is kind of new to me. I wish I would have done it a long time ago. It's slowly growing. But any money, if I ever make money, I know I've said it a few times, but all that money will be donated to charity to fight fight cystic fibrosis. And a big saying in the CF community is FUCF. Everybody thinks it means FU, cystic fibrosis. It means fight until cure is found. Until then, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Like and subscribe.